Many audiophiles claim they want to hear what the music master engineers heard in their editing studio. They also like to get the same monitor speakers, trying to achieve this goal. This is the so-called original sound as the master engineers intended to let them to hear. Let's take some closer look on what exactly the music studio is doing for their work environment. The editing studio is normally fully treated acoustically to avoid the sound reflections. The reason for this is that the reflections will affect how they can edit the music, as the editing engineers need the extreme clarity to analyze the music and adjust them accordingly and properly. For the same reason, the editing room might also be designed with some odd shapes, such as without the parallel walls. This will minimize the early reflection impacts, as the sound will be bouncing multiple times before getting to the engineer's ears. With the absorptive room, these reflected sound will be much more minimized to help the clarity of the direct sound. You might also see some studios have their speakers mounted on the walls. This is also for the reason to avoid the sound reflections and diffractions. Diffraction happens when sound wave hits the edge of the boundaries of the loudspeaker enclosure, or other corners of the objects. The monitor speakers are also designed for this purpose in mind, or the speakers were selected by the studio with this in mind. They may not care about the off-axis performance that much, as the off-axis sound will be absorbed by the heavily treated studio room. For the same reason, the speakers are typically located much closer to the engineers, so they are pretty much hearing the near-field sound instead. The engineers do not want to hear the off-axis sound, or the reflected sound, as they need to focus on the music elements to be edited. This is why we have this term in audiophile community, so-called analytical sound, as some audiophiles want to hear that extreme clarity as the editing and mastering engineers heard. If this is your audiophile goal, then yes, you shall try to mimic your listening environment, exactly the same as the music studio, as the audio engineers do. But for most of us, trying to enjoy music, we shall not chase the audio like that. Our goal shall be more for live music, to reproduce the real-life experience. This is actually much harder to achieve, as there is no perfect speakers can reproduce the perfect sound, or the real original sound. Part of the reason behind this is because the speaker's construction limitations. Each speaker driver has its limited frequency range for nearly perfect sound, meaning the flat response curve. So we have to use multiple drivers to construct the loudspeakers, let alone that each speaker driver's diaphragm may not be perfect either. By doing so, each drivers will have some interference from each other. Although the loudspeaker designers and builders trying their best to minimize these impacts, trade-off will have to be made, just like everything else in real life. This is why all speakers have their sound signature, as nothing can be perfect. When we say musical sound in audiophile community, as comparing to the analytical sound, we mean the speakers can reproduce the sound, more enjoyable for music listening, as some of us prefer more relaxed sound. More relaxed sound typically means it can produce some timbre and spaciousness to mimic more real-life musical environment. Not perfect, but can be more enjoyable, and you can listen for a long time without fatigue. Enjoy listening.